Hello everyone, it's Nick Peters here, the gaming theologian. Coming back to you, got my little kitty Shiro right next to me, and let's go to the moon. Now let's... So, last time I'd said that we were going to go straight into Bahamut's cave. Turns out I didn't think that one through entirely. It's better to go find the person who's waiting for us on the moon first. Who happens to dwell in this palace, but there's no way to land right there because the moon has too many craters. So we're going to go the long way around, which is the only way to get there. And yes, the moon has its inhabitants. Let's use a flood to get past these things. Anyway, we had someone in the chat not too long ago asking about Mormonism. And this is a topic someone requested I speak on once. I plan to go a bit further into talking about Mormonism at a later time. But for now, I want to talk about Mormonism in the first cause argument, which I have spoken about on here before. And if someone wants to know, perhaps there's a Mormon listening who wants to know, well, what makes you think you know anything about Mormonism? Fair question, and it's one that should be asked. So I'll go ahead and list what all I have done. I've read all the Mormon scriptures, and I've read the teachings of the presidents of the church, Brigham Young and Joseph Smith. I've read Bruce McConkie's Mormon Doctrine. I did read a book by Hugh Nibley on early Mormonism in the early church recently. So that's just all that I'm remembering right off. There's probably more things that I've read on the topic, and we're going to go back and rest again because that battle really tore through me. But yeah, I've done my share of reading on Mormonism, and I've interacted with several missionaries, and some people might ask, why are you doing this? Well, first off, because Mormons need Jesus, just like everyone does, but also, really, Mormonism is a fascinating religion to study. It's truly an American religion, and I wish that was a good thing, but in this case, it isn't. But Mormonism just comes from an era of growing individualism, and it really takes the American dream, American exceptionalism, and turns everything on its head, kind of. I think that we're so special that surely Jesus would give a visit to us. And it was answering questions that were common at the time, such as, where did all these other people come from that were here when we got here? And we said, oh, well, we have an answer for that. It wasn't a new answer, but it was an answer. And there's a lot of parallels between Mormonism and Islam as well, and I'm not going to go into those now. but you can rest assured that they exist. Anyone who's wanting to know more can look up information on that. But at any rate, Mormonism had a. I often think when it got towards the end, or rather by the end, I mean the end of Joseph Smith's life, I think he knew what was coming quite likely because he was causing controversy wherever he went and it was turning violent. And I suspect he was thinking that he couldn't keep it up much longer. So he was just going to see how far he could go. That's my suspicion on it. What would people believe? And there was a guy at the church named King Follett who had passed away. And in the King Follett discourse, Joseph Smith introduces a new doctrine. And we got a commenter in the area who's talking about a lot of the Mormon LDS in his area. And yes, that's one of the reasons I chose to do this topic. We're going to be talking more about it in future installments. But Joseph Smith made the claim that we were meant to be gods ourselves. And he didn't mean this in the traditional sense of theosis. He meant that we were literally gods in training. And that eventually we would be meant to have our own planets and be creators over that one as well. Dang, I meant to do that to all of them, aware. And this is a doctrine known as eternal progression. One of the presidents of the Mormon Church, Lorenzo Snow, phrased it very well in a little couplet, very easy to remember. As man is, God once was, as God is, man may become. And this was the goal, that you would eventually become God of your own planet, just like God did before us, and you would inspire the cycle of Mormonism to continue as well. Yeah, this is a very unusual belief, but it's one that Mormons hold to, although a lot of your average Mormon missionaries might not be that familiar about it. The LDS Church, in some ways, has tried to back away from this position. Okay, I've got a question. Can you explain the difference between theosis and their doctrine? I'll get to that in just a little bit as soon as I finish saying this. That Gordon Hinckley, one of the past presidents of a Mormon church, was asked about this once by a reporter. He said, well, I'm not really sure if we teach that or not, to which I have to say, if you're a president of a church and you don't know what your church is teaching, that's a big problem. But the thing is, he did know what it was teaching. He just didn't want that out in the open because he had spoken about it before. Now, the question being asked is, what is the difference between theosis? The difference is that we are not going to be ontologically like a god, which is the claim of Joseph Smith. In other words, we're never going to be omnipotent, omniscient, and all of the other omnis. But we are going to be like Jesus, in a sense that we will be what humans were meant to be, true reflections of the image of God to an extent. It's it's a doctrine that's often misunderstood, but it is in no way anything like what Joseph Smith was taught. No church father ever thought that we would be gods of our own planet one day. So, looking at this doctrine, philosophically, I consider it a nightmare, really, because when we looked at the argument from motion, as understood by Aquinas and Aristotle and others, we saw God must be a being of pure actuality. He cannot change, but he is the source of change and everything else. Okay, now here we're meeting the person who was waiting for us. So I'll explain this dialogue first, and then we'll get back to Mormonism. You are Fusoya. His duty is to protect the slumber of the Lunarians. And many years ago, a planet between Mars and Jupiter was on the verge of destruction, and the inhabitants escaped to the blue planet, Earth. But while they were evolving, they created a moon where they could sleep a long slumber. But one refused to sleep. He wanted to raise the blue planet and create a new home there. Fusoya sealed him away and forced him into a deep sleep, but he's able to channel his evil into the corrupt inhabitants of your planet and use them to gather the crystals. He's the one behind Gobaz's actions. Name Zemus. He wants to activate the dimensional elevator of the Giant of Babel and destroy everything on the planet. And then Fusoya says many felt they could come to an understanding for people of Earth. By the way, it's not fear, it's think. That's what it should be. The Lunarians are sleeping, waiting for the people to reach the right lever. And the lunar ware was built by Fusoya's younger brother, Pluya, as transportation to the blue planet. And he came and brought the Devil's Road and airship technology from his desire to explore. He fell in love and had 2 children. One is Cesar. The voice of Mount Orderos was the soul of Pluya, his father. And Pluya gave Cesar power to stop Zemus's plan. And they're supposed to go to the Tower of Babel, which is under a barrier, but Fusoya says they can enter. And he joins our party at this point. So this guy is essentially Cesar's uncle, which that was a huge plot twist. And here we have the crystals of the moon. They surround the entrance to the core where Zemus lies. And Zemus has his barrier to protect the path. They keep Zemus sealed away. So Zemus is the big bad of the game. Anyway, getting back to, first off, let's make sure we got Fusoya equipped. Now, I hate to say it, but as a character, Fusoya is kind of awful. He knows every spell, yeah, which is good, but he's incredibly slow. He doesn't gain much health in the game. And gotta change her arrow there. He does have the ability to help the party recover HP and magic, and that's his most important trait. but he doesn't stand up where to attacks, unfortunately. So when I see this argument from Mormons, I want to just ask, okay, so your God came from another God, who came from another God, who came from another God. So, you know, I want to get back to the original big guy. Where is he? Where no one really knows. And that's a large part of the problem, that it creates an infinite regrets that I don't think someone like Aquinas would have accepted it at all. In it somehow says that a being who is finite can become infinite. I really do not see that as possible. And then, of course, there's nothing in the Bible that backs this at all. And dang it, did it again. It actually goes back to the first lie in the Garden of Eden. You shall be as God. And ups it to a whole new level of saying, yeah, you're going to be ontologically equal to God. There's something odd in that. Let's see, if the Book of Mormon had stuck to just the Book of Mormon, instead of things like the Doctrines and Covenants and other works like that, it might have been maybe a heterodox kind of group, because the Book of Mormon actually upholds monotheism. It says there is only one God. And then the Doctrine and Covenants and New Revelation came around and changed all of that. I mean, if we just had the Book of Mormon, it would have been, well, okay, so you believe Jesus came here to America, where that's a strange belief, okay, but it doesn't really deny anything essential for Christianity. So, it's a historical anomaly, and that could have been it, but Joseph Smith kept going. And one reason I suspect was because he slept around with a lot of the ladies. And so he had to introduce new doctrines, such as saying God was now fine with polygamy. Which, wow, yes, that does show up in the Old Testament. Thing is, it never ends well when it does show up. It leads to divisions in the family, and it was never meant to be the ideal for humanity. We get that when Jesus talks about divorce and remarriage in the Gospels. But Joseph Smith got caught with another woman and had to do something. And I think women especially should have a big problem with Mormonism and polygamy, because, I mean, Joseph Smith claimed he had a revelation for his wife Emma that said, you better go along with this, or you're going to be judged. Not a shock that after Joseph Smith died, when Emma started up the Reformed Latter-day Saints thing called RLDS, that one of the first doctrines she got rid of was polygamy. Imagine that. Okay, so now we're going to go back to of Bahamut. In Mormonism, it's essentially materialism also, because God has a body of flesh and bones, just like we do in the system. So, it's materialism with some spirituality thrown in. Now, these guardians, if you can get them confused, it can be helpful. We embrace it fully heals a character, but it turns them to stone. So yeah, there's always a downside to everything. You know, we got a comment from someone in here saying that theosis is participating in the divinity of Christ, which is eternal and transcendent of all reality. Mormon Jesus' divinity is a temporal, finite Superman upgrade. Yeah, that's pretty much accurate there. And, the Mormon concept of Jesus is also, keep in mind that he is the spirit brother of Lucifer as well. So, try and make sense of that one, too. And keep in mind, a lot of you, when Mormons come to your door, they're not going to tell you a lot of these doctrines. And to be fair, some of them, Mormon missionaries might not know themselves, for all we know. There's a lot about Mormonism that is kept secret from its own members. That's why the internet has been so damaging to Mormons. But another thing, I want to ask Mormons, okay, how do I get back to the real big guy? How do I get to the God at the end of a chain? And there's seemingly no way to get back there. And even if we got back there, is this big guy just another material being? And if so, he needs to be explained, because with good Thomistic philosophy, that if something is matter, it inherently has potential to it. It cannot explain itself. It's not the basis of its own existing, in that sense. Okay, we're going to see if Rydia can provide us some better healing here. And she did. Here's Asura at work. Now, if you looked earlier here, you would have seen that there was a figure blocking the path ahead. In the original game, that figure wasn't there. You stepped on that spot and you were surprised by an encounter. And when we get to that encounter, we'll see it's nothing pleasant. And a commenter again saying that, not to mention, it is finite in space and temporality, which is hardly God has revealed himself. Absolutely 100% correct. It is case of children of a lesser God. And this is something that I try and press Mormons on, but unfortunately it's hard to explain the philosophy beyond it all. Okay, Behemoth. Do not use magic on him. Do not. It will not end well for you. Now, every time he gets attacked, he gives a counterattack. So what we're going to do is we're going to only have our best attackers, Edge and Cessor, damage him. And I'll commenter apparently has played Final Fantasy IV, saying he got completely floored in the final battle, which, yeah, the final battle is nothing easy. So we're going to make sure we're all leveled up whenever we get there. So now she casts Protect on everyone. Not the best, but it'll do. Anyway, if anyone's interested, I'm considering an idea of taking clips of our little show here and making smaller versions available. Not sure how I would do that, but if anyone knows how to do that and is interested in helping out, let me know. Yeah, Chaos in the original Final Fantasy was certainly a very difficult battle, and the capacity to save your game was not as strong back then as it is today. And we're going to use Fusoria to heal because he's got this wonderful spell called Osmos that Rosa does not have. Okay, if you have a suggestion for sorting, you girls, you can send me a message or email me, and I'd be very interested in that. If you don't know my email, you can just, when I'm done going through today's game, I'll put it in the chat. Yeah, behemoths are real powerhouses. Oh, just the one I wanted to get. And behemoths have kind of been staples in Final Fantasy games ever since. I really wish that Fusoria's regen did so much better, because really it does not regenerate nearly enough. In the original, I think you could also recover MP with it, which was much more helpful too. Sometimes you gotta wonder if Rosa is praying to Baal or something like the prophets of Elijah. Since so many times it goes, prayer unanswered. For life. Yeah. Okay. One more behemoth to go through. Yeah, when you have Mormon missionaries come by, though, before you tell them what they believe, even about something like eternal progression, ask them what they believe first, because it could very well be they do not know about these doctrines. And you don't want to go telling them what they believe if they haven't told you they believe it. The benefit of using confuse is that he's going to attack himself on his turn, while we get to have free actions until he does something. That's going to be incredibly helpful here. Doesn't be doing anything now, but that's fine, because we've got regen going on, we've got prayer taking place here. At this rate, I might just go and finish him off some, since he doesn't seem to be doing anything. We'll get one more prayer out. You know, commenter was saying that he had a friend who was a Mormon who's a Catholic now, and that a lot of people, when they come out of Mormonism, become atheists. Which, yes, that's very true, because they are told that if Mormonism isn't true, then pretty much nothing else is. And for these people, their whole life is Mormonism. Their job, Mormonism. Their friends, Mormonism. Their spouse, Mormonism. Everything comes down to Mormonism. So, when someone does walk away from a church, that is often a very big move. And we don't need to take that lightly. Mormons can often risk everything by becoming Christians. Wherever they become, if they leave Mormonism, they are putting everything on the line. That's why I also, with what our commenter said about Mormons becoming atheists when they leave, when I dialogue with Mormons, I make it a point to not just go after Mormonism, because that is a good way to just produce an atheist. I make it a point to build up the Bible, so that when Mormonism falls, they will have something to fall back on. And especially the case if they live in Utah. Yes, Utah is thoroughly Mormon. You can't really escape it there. So, before we talk to this guy here, we're going to get healed up a little bit. Do I want to use an effort here? Yeah, let me check my items here, because I think there's one I can use that wasn't in the original game. Let's check and see here. Yeah, the light and lunar curtains. And now we are going up against Bahamut. And this boss has a countdown. Okay, so we want to slow him down. So we're going to cast slow on him. And let's see, can I do this? No, I'm going to save that for someone who can't cast. You want to cast it on your healers first, just in case, because they can actually bounce back, as it were. Okay, so now we're magicked up entirely. Where is reflect again? Yeah, sorry about that edge, just didn't get to even time. And now we're going to... That magic bypassed the reflex shield, so you don't have to worry about that. We're going to try and unload as much as we can. Let's see, do we still have reflect up? Yes. So we're going to wait for a little while, make sure it stays up. Still up. Well, this is not ending well for Bahamut. Thing is, his Mega Flare is the only attack he uses. What are my thoughts on William Lane Craig's Neo-Apollinarianism, where I have a problem with embracing any kind of Apollinarianism. I don't understand why he has that position, but I frankly haven't read enough on his writings on that, about that. So that's about all I can say for now. Lydia has learned Bahamut, and I consider William Lane Craig a friend. I've taught his Defenders class before, twice. But I really just, I don't see the basis for what he does there. Okay, recommendations on witnessing when Mormons don't know much about Mormonism. Simple. Talk about the Bible. Talk about Jesus. Talk about who Jesus really is. And get them go that. And the thing is, you have to try to get them away from the internal witness of a Holy Spirit thing that they have, which, yes, I know Craig uses the same argument. I don't like it either when it comes from him. But whenever they point to their testimony, consider it as hitting a weak spot. So, that's all I can say at this point, because it's getting the time to wrap things up. And so, I've received a suggestion about what to do about making the files more bite-sized so people can watch later on. If you want to email me and we can discuss how that's done, that'd be really great. But until then, next time when we come here, we're gonna go to Earth to try to stop the giant of Babel. And we'll be talking about a different topic that'll hopefully happen tomorrow. But thanks everyone for coming. And, maybe tomorrow I might even talk about the idea of the internal witness and the testimony problem of Mormonism. But now, I'm Nick Peters. I'm being paranoid about this, but saving again. I affirm the virgin birth. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe this. And subscribe to my Patreon. I really need the support, but I'd really like to get more people watching this channel and enjoying what we're doing. And try and find me on Discord. I've set up a Discord channel, but I will see you all next time.